الله 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 الله، ما لنا مولى سوى الله. الله 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 الله، ما لنا مولى سوى الله.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، أما بعد، فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
أسكنوهن.
أسكنوهن.
No, it's just أسكنوهن.
أسكنوهن.
من حيث سكنتم من وجدكم ولا تضاروهن لتضيقوا عليهن وإن كن أولات حمل فأنفقوا عليهن حتى يضعن حملهن، فإن أرضعن لكم فآتوهن أجورهن وأتمروا بينكم بمعروف، وإن تعاسرتم فسترضع له أخرى. لينفق ذو سعة من سعته، ومن قدر عليه رزقه فلينفق مما آتاه الله، لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا ما آتاها، سيجعل الله بعد عسر يسرا. وكأي من قرية عتت عن أمر ربها ورسله فحاسبناها حسابا شديدا وعذبناها عذابا نكرا، فذاقت وبال أمرها وكان عاقبة أمرها خسرا. أعد الله لهم عذابا شديدا فاتقوا الله يا أولي الألباب الذين آمنوا قد أنزل الله إليكم ذكرا رسولا يتلو عليكم آيات الله مبينات ليخرج الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات من الظلمات إلى النور. ومن يؤمن بالله ويعمل صالحا يدخله جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها أبدا. قد أحسن الله له رزقا. الله الذي خلق 7 سماوات ومن الأرض مثلهن يتنزل الأمر بينهن
بينهن
لتعلموا
لتعلموا
أن الله
أن الله
على كل شيء قدير
على كل شيء قدير
وأن الله
وأن الله
قد أحاط
قد أحاط
بكل شيء علما.
بكل شيء علما.
صدق الله العظيم. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا Muhammad وعلى آل سيدنا مولانا Muhammad وبارك وسلم. Alhamdulillah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the tawfiq to be here, to be in His home, to reflect upon these verses of Surah Talaq. Right? We did one lecture before Surah Talaq, and this is one more lecture, and we'll finish Surah Talaq. What does Surah Talaq means? It means talaq. It means the divorce. And we talked about some things before. We talked about there's something called after divorce, right? In Islam, there's something called iddah. Iddah means waiting period. So we talked about the waiting period. We talked about a woman who goes through cycle, what is her waiting period? Whereas a woman who does not get a cycle, what is her waiting period? These things were mentioned. Okay, so today will be a continuation, and it'll tell us more rules. One more rule of the iddah, the waiting period, is that when a woman stays in the home for the waiting period, if it's a mughallada, then she has to maintain hijab from the husband. Mughallada means it's a type of if a divorce is done where there'll be no return, no rujur. That's called mughallada. So like where there's no option for rujur. Like if you give talaq al-bain. Remember talaq al-bain was where you had to get married again. So when she's going through the waiting period, then she'll do hijab. But if she's not that type of a divorcee, she's just the other divorcee where you can take her back, then she will not have to do hijab because she's still in a kind of a marriage, in a way, where there could be an easy turn back without a marriage needed again. Okay, so let's translate our first verse today, okay? This is ayah 6, askinuhunna. First, let's go ahead and translate. I'll translate it and then we can explain it. We'll go through each part. First, I'll just provide the translation. Provide to them, the divorced woman, residence where you reside, according to your means. So a man, during the iddah period, he keeps her at his level. And it depends on the man's status. So if the man is a rich man and he's married to a poor woman, what kind of standard does he has to provide her during the iddah? So it's just talking about what standard you have to provide her during the iddah. His standard. So if the man is rich and the woman is poor, so then what standard? His rich standard. If he's middle class, then his middle class. So it doesn't depend on the woman. What if the woman is a rich woman, but the man is a poor man? Then what standard does he have to provide? Poor, right? So it depends on the man. He provides according to his status. Okay, if he's poor, he's going to provide poor. If he's middle class, he's going to provide middle class. If he's rich class, he's going to provide rich class. Regardless of the lady. She could be whatever class she is. Okay, so this is mentioned here. Okay, so provide to them, the divorcee woman, right? During that waiting period, the residence where you reside according to your means, meaning according to your standards, and do not hurt them do not hurt them to strain life for them, meaning that don't take advantage of that. Like meaning that the fact that she has to do the waiting period and you have to provide it, don't take advantage of her during that time. Meaning don't cause her any undue harm at that time. She has that right. And if they are pregnant, spend on them till they give birth to their child. Right? We talked about the waiting period is, if it's a pregnant woman, then her waiting time is until she delivers the baby. And so you give expenditure to them. Now, why is this mentioned again? This didn't need to be mentioned again because we already said that. You're going to give nafaqah, expenditure to the one who's a lady. It especially mentioned the pregnant lady. The reason it mentioned that is that the pregnant lady, her waiting period might get prolonged, because sometimes a pregnancy could last 9 months, right? From 6 months to 9 months. Makes sense? So a thought might come to a man's mind that, hey, this waiting period is getting way too long now, right? I'm having to provide, I've divorced, and it's been more than, right? The normal lady who's not pregnant, her waiting period will be much smaller than a pregnant lady. So the thought might run across the man's head is that, do I still have to provide expenditure? So that's why it's being clarified. That yes, the pregnant lady, until she delivers, you're going to have to provide the expenditure. Expenditure means, which I will explain later what the expenditure means. Okay, what does that cover? Then if they suckle the child for you, give them their fees and consult each other for determining the fee with fairness. She gets an expenditure when she's suckling the child. Okay, she gets to charge a fee for that. Like the mom is going to feed the nurse the baby, right? It's the baby's right that it be nursed by their own biological mom. But then after the divorce, the baby is going to be nursed, but now she gets to charge her fee. And who's paying that? The man. Okay. But then it talks about how it should be reasonable fee. She shouldn't try to charge too much now. Now that he's divorced me, let me charge you a little too much. Or the man is underpaying. It should be a normal amount that you pay. And if she's still being asking for too much, then and Allah Subhanahu mentioned that when ta'asartum, then what he'll do is that he'll have someone else nurse the baby. Someone else, and he'll pay the fee because she's charging too much. His ex-wife is charging too much, so he'll give the fee to this other nurse lady. She's gonna nurse the baby and give the baby back. You get every day she'll take him for nursing and give the baby back. Make sense? So it's gone into this much detail to provide that limitation. Provide the iddah until delivery. If there's a baby involved, then after once the baby suckles, then the fee. Once the baby is born, then the suckling, the fee, and then it says that they should work out a fair fee. If the fair fee is not they're not able to come to that conclusion, then that will be that the man will get the baby nursed through some other woman. Okay, and then all right, so that's what it meant. That's ayah 6. Okay, now let me give you some details. There's an ikhtilaf when we say there's a iddah. When we say iddah, even last lecture we talked about iddah, waiting period, and we're talking about nafaqa. Nafaqa is the Arabic word, technical word in Islamic law. When we say nafaqa, it means expenditure. Okay, but what is expenditure? What are we talking about? The clothing? Are we talking about the food? Or are we talking about shelter? Right. So there's difference of opinion in that. Imam Malik and Imam Shafi, rahimahullah, they say that you have to provide the woman during the waiting period a home, but no nafaqa. You just provide her the home. You don't have to give her any support money. She should figure out herself how she's going to get all the support money. She just has a shelter. And this is according to Imam Malik and Imam Shafi. And according to Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, rahimahullah, he says his opinion is neither. No home, no expenditure. During the iddah period. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, his opinion is no, they get both. During the iddah period. So the most lenient viewpoint is the more giving is the Imam Hanifa, rahimahullah, Hanafi school viewpoint, which says that no, she'll get a shelter and plus she'll get expenditure, just like how she was getting in the marriage. So during the iddah period, she should get both. No, they have different dalils. Okay, I'll come to that. You're okay. You're thinking on the right track, but you jumped 2 steps ahead of me. I'm coming there. Okay. So the dalil of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, what was Imam Ahmad's opinion? His opinion was no residency, no expenditure. What's his evidence? So each madhab, it brings its own evidences, right? So the evidence for that is that there was a woman by the name of Fatima bint Qais, radiyallahu ta'ala anha, that happened with her, that her husband divorced her. And she was a bit, she used to overtalk. Understand? She used to say negative things about the husband's family anyway. So she did that. And then her husband tried to give her some nafaqa, that what her husband could provide during the iddah. And she's like, what? This nafaqa? Iska mera kya banega? Right? Like, what am I going to do? Like, he gave according to what he could give, but she's like, I don't want this. Like she rejected it. It's not enough nafaqa for her. So she came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Prophet ﷺ knew that the husband gave expenditure according to what he could give. Plus, she's very hostile to the family. So Prophet ﷺ told her that no, you go. You're gonna get nothing. Your scenario, you go to live with your uncle. That's where Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal takes dalil from. That lady Fatima bint Qais came to Rasulullah ﷺ, and Prophet said, "You go. Like you don't get any nafaqa, nothing." Okay, so that's the dalil of the Hanbali school. But the other viewpoint, Imam Hazrat Aisha radiallahu ta'ala and Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala, they say that story that happened with Fatima bint Qais, that was an exception to the rule. Because the Qur'an states, as we read in the ayah today, that you provide her with expenditure. Make sense? So the Aimma, they take an evidence. So Imam Ahmad rahimahullah takes that hadith as his primary evidence. And the other Aimma take that event as an exceptional case. And they say, but generally women should be provided during the iddah period, the residency plus with the expenditure. Residency plus the food and shelter. Okay, so that's why it says يَسْكِنُوهُنَّ مِنْ حَيْثُ سَكَنْتُم مِّن وُجْدِكُمْ وَلَا تُضَارُّوهُنَّ لِتُضَيِّقُوا عَلَيْهِنَّ. And after that, وَإِن كُنَّ أُولَاتِ حَمْلٍ, and if they're women of pregnancy, so you divorced a woman and she was pregnant, فَأَنْفِقُوا عَلَيْهِنَّ, so spend on her حَتَّى يَضَعْنَ حَمْلَهُنَّ, meaning that now you've divorced her, but until she delivers, she has to get her iddah. She's going to be in her iddah. Iddah means she's going to stay at her home, right? And you're going to provide the expenditure. And why does it especially mention? I already told you that before, right? It's because a person might have got a thought that a pregnant lady, her waiting period is going to be long. So a man would get the thought that, do I still have to provide expenditures? So that's being answered that you are. Okay. And also note that same for the warithin. Let's just say a husband divorced, right? And then he passes away. So the heirs, they shouldn't ask that lady to go from the house because the husband had divorced. They should honor that waiting. They should honor the waiting period. Make sense? So the husband will do it. If he passed away, then the heirs will apply that. And then we can note here, child custody. Who keeps the kids after divorce? Okay, so the child custody, the woman gets the child custody of age 7 and under, and girls up till bulugh. Girls up till bulugh, the boys up till age 7 and under, boys up till bulugh, a woman gets custody. After that, the custody of the man. Okay, primary custody. So she gets primary custody of that. That means that they see the dad on the weekends. Understand? And whereas after that, then it'll be the other way around. Then dad gets primary custody, and she gets to see them on the weekends. Everyone's got it? This is so tough. Or everyone's got it?
No, it's good. I'm wondering, like, the hours take as long and think of how you could implement into modern society.
Yeah.
So could you like walk into a court and say, hey, I'm Muslim, she's Muslim, and there's no custody battle. You can just be like, based on the child's age and my religious beliefs, I should have custody. Like, could you use that to defend yourself? Because I have friends where like they have custody battles, and I never knew that.
People should. Right, yeah. So Islam has got all these rules. So we don't need to have these battles in non-Muslim courts. Understand? We should stick to Islam. Islam will give us the most peaceful solution. Islam knows much better than what human beings could ever come up with. Understand? So these are determined in our fiqh, in our law. These are there. But no, but what your question is, I mean, is the non-Muslim courts going to uphold all this? No, that's up to their discretion. Understand? But what's wise for us to do is Muslims should not resort to non-Muslim court. Only if you really, really need to, then you resort to that. You can sort these things out on your own because our law already covers it. Make sense? So just go according to that and it'll be the best because it's according to Islamic law. Does that make sense? Yeah, so that's the. Okay, so the child custody. Okay, now the woman gets that custody, as I mentioned, with 2 conditions. The 2 conditions are, number 1, that she does not get married. If she gets married, then she loses the custody even the younger children. According to Islamic law, then she should hand the kids over, even the younger ones. Or the second is, if she marries a ghair mahram to the child. So if she marries like in a close, like she marries like a close relative of the child, then she can keep the custody of the children under 7. You get, because the family member will treat that child like his own. So the child is in a more safer position. But if she marries outside of family, you get it? She's married to a stranger outside of family, then she has to let go of that custody. Make sense? Okay. All right, custody stuff is done. All right, moving on. Then the next part. فإن أرضعن لكم فآتوهن أجورهن. Then if they will nurse the children, then give them their wage. We talked about that, right? Divorce has happened. There's a suckling baby involved. She gives that, so you will give some expenditure just for her nursing. Okay, وَأْتَمِرُوا بَيْنَكُمْ بِمَعْرُوفٍ. That part, وَأْتَمِرُوا بَيْنَكُمْ بِمَعْرُوفٍ, and consult each other for determining the fee with fairness. It has to be a balanced fee, not overburdening the husband and not overburdening the woman. And this concept is constantly mentioned. It's very important that the husband not be burdened with something he cannot bear, and the lady should not be burdened with something she cannot bear. This is very important. And then وَإِن تَعَاسَرْتُمْ فَسَتُرْضِعُ لَهُ أُخْرَى. And if you create a deadlock between you, then another woman will suckle him. If the husband and wife can't even agree on the fee, right? And then she's like asking this much, the husband wants to pay this much, then have another woman nurse. The other woman will nurse the baby and give the baby back to mom, because who has the custody? The mom, primary custody.
The man is responsible to take the baby for the nursing.
We didn't cover that part.
Oh.
Yeah, but they need to come determine that in a fair manner. Okay, then moving on to the next verse. لِيُنْفِقْ ذُو سَعَةٍ مِّن سَعَةٍ. A man of vast means should spend according to his vast means. A man of vast means should spend according to his vast means. So Allah subhanahu over here, the fuqaha pick up the principle that the expenditure is based on the man's ability. If he is rich class, he has to provide for his wife, rich class level. Middle class, poor. Okay, it doesn't matter what her status is. Depends on what the man's status is, because he's the one paying the nafaqa. Then moving on. وَمَنْ قُدِرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقُهُ. Everyone see where we are? وَمَنْ قُدِرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقُهُ. And anyone whose sustenance is limited should spend from whatever Allah has given him. Allah makes no one liable beyond what He has given to him, and Allah soon brings ease after a difficulty. So Allah Subhanahu mentions that La yukallifullahu nafsan. This is again this concept is repeated in Surah At-Talaq, because divorce is a difficult thing, right? So Allah Subhanahu mentions these types of things, that Allah Subhanahu never puts a burden on someone that they cannot bear. So Allah Subhanahu give us tawfiq. People should surrender to the laws of Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. سَيَجْعَلُ اللَّهُ بَعْدَ عُسْرٍ يُسْرًا. Soon it may be that Allah will make difficult, after difficulty, Allah will bring what? Ease. With the hardship comes ease. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives ease, but we have to trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plan and His orders. Okay. Then after that, the next verse, everybody's following? Verse 8. وَكَأَيٍّ مِّن قَرْيَةٍ عَتَتْ عَنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّهَا وَرُسُلِهِ. How many towns were there that broke the order of Allah? Now, from this point onwards, the talaq concepts are done up to here. Now, the next 2-3 verses they're just reminding you about how important it is for you to follow the orders of Allah. Okay. So what I took from that is because talaq is difficult, and then people usually forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when they're very happy or when they're very sad. But we have to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in normal times and in very happy times, and also very sad times. Okay, so you don't take Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is judging, testing us in every circumstance. So we don't pick and choose. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions how many towns were there that disobeyed their Lord and His Messenger. فَحَاسَبْنَهَا حِسَابًا شَدِيدًا. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took them to a hard account. وَعَذَّبْنَهَا عَذَابًا نُكْرًا. And He punished them with a punishment that was unimaginable by them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that there are many nations who disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We took them to severe accountability and gave them punishments that they could not even imagine. What does this have to do with talaq? Understand, it's mentioned right next to talaq. Understand, so it's saying be very careful. Be very careful. Don't cross the limits. Then the next verse, فَذَاقَتْ وَبَالَ أَمْرِهَا وَكَانَ عَاقِبَةُ أَمْرِهَا خُسْرًا. Thus they tasted the evil consequence of their acts, and the end of their conduct was loss. Okay. Then the next verse, أَعَدَّ اللَّهُ لَهُمْ عَذَابًا شَدِيدًا. Allah has prepared for them a severe punishment. So fear Allah, O men of understanding who have believed. Allah has sent down to you a reminder. Okay, so the one thing to be noted in this verse, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ يَا أُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O people of intellect, يَا أُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. It says, O people of intellect, and then it describes who are people of intellect, those who have faith. So throughout the Quran, whenever it says intellectual people, it says that the only people with true aql are the believers. It's a concept of the Quran. It's repeated in different ways. So why is that? A question could arise here. The true intellectuals are believers, but who's ruling the earth? Who's ruling the world? The mu'mineen or the kafirin? Who's ruling the world? You get it? But whereas if you look at the Quran, it says the true intelligent are the believers. But then, how are we going to answer that question? Also, it says elsewhere in the Quran that those people who don't believe, it compares them to livestock. I didn't say that. The Qur'an did, right? The Qur'an did said that. An'am, that they're just like cattle. They're not as civilized like human beings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned elsewhere that the heavens and the earth, the alteration of night and day, there are signs in it for people of intellect, people who are truly intelligent. And truly intelligent are only those who believe. So a question could arise, is that how come that is being mentioned? Is because if you think about it, that is the reality. Because the non-Muslims, when they don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, although they advance themselves in so many scientific things, they might discover that, in science and breakthroughs of space and the cell and the atom, and right, they'll do all these, but they still don't know who the creator is. Make sense? You do these high-level discoveries, but you still don't know who's the creator. You miss the creator. And whereas a Bedouin, some lay person in some gaon, some town somewhere, who doesn't have all the scientific knowledge, he knows that there's a creator. Of course, this heaven and the earth couldn't come together. So that intelligence is not true intelligence. Like they haven't even unlocked their true intelligence. They've wandered about on the earth, but they still don't know. They haven't reached. It wasn't that difficult. Oh, by the way, to know the creator, you don't have to be a scientist. But to know the creator is just like 2 + 2. And then it's basic logic. So in a sense, they haven't unlocked their basic thinking. So Al-Quran doesn't even call them ulul albab. Ulul albab are only those who believe. That's it. Make sense? So now, what are we going to call that intelligence? The intelligence, the kuffar, the intelligence they're displaying, the Quran doesn't want to call it intellect. So you can call it aql ma'ash. They're very intellect in just how to make money. They just have intellect of how to survive properly on the earth. But the intelligence that the Quran is talking about is you have to believe in the Creator, and then you have to apply His laws.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when it says there's signs in the changing of the night and day, what signs is it specifically? Can you just give some examples? Because I've read these portions of the Quran and I've thought to myself, like, well, what signs are they and how do you interpret them?
Everything is a sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything. So you can take lesson from anything. From animals, from yourself, from your own body, from everything is an ayah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything is a sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's a long topic. Okay. So that verse, actually, I'll tell you the whole verse. إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, how everything is created. Okay? وَاخْتِلَاء, and the alteration of night and day. You know how night and day come about. لَآيَاتِ are many signs for people of intellect. So there's signs everywhere. If you look at your own body, look at everything, sign of a perfect creator. And then in space, how everything is created in a perfect, delicate manner. It cannot. Nothing could be at random like that. Nothing perfect comes like that at random. Okay, so we can talk about it later. But there's a way. It's a very important sign. It's undeniable through logic of the Creator. It's very hard to deny the Creator, logically speaking. Okay. Rasulan, the next verse. Rasulan yatlu alaykum. A messenger who recites to you the verses. Okay, clear verses. لِيُخْرِجَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, so that he may take out those who believe and do good deeds from darkness to light. Right? Allah, that's what the messenger has come down to do. That takes people out of darkness to light. Whenever we whenever we connect with the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it takes us out from our darknesses to the light. And so that's why it's very important for Muslims to connect back with the revelation. If you don't, how are you going to come out of your darknesses back into light? وَمَنْ يُؤْمِن بِاللَّهِ, whoever believes in Allah, وَيَعْمَلْ صَالِحًا, and does righteous deeds, يُدْخِلْهُ جَنَّاتٍ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will enter him into gardens. Admit him into gardens beneath which rivers flow, wherein such people will live forever. Allah has made for him a good provision. قَدْ أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ لَهُ رِزْقًا. So these were just some verses, 2-3 verses that were just more of reminders. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prepared such a great rizq for them in Jannah. Allah provided us all this rizq here, and then his great rizq of Jannah awaits those who believe and do righteous deeds. And then is the final verse for today's dars. This final verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so the initial verses of Surah Talaq were about Talaq. Then these 2-3 verses came about just a reminder that, hey, there are many nations who didn't follow Allah's orders. They had a hard accountability and they had unimaginable punishments. So don't go down that route where you're going to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then the final verse is some attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah ends it that people should know, people should recognize the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and some are mentioned. Allahu alladhi khalaqa sab. Allah is the one who has created 7 skies and their lights from the earth. So his first attribute is being mentioned here, Khaliq. He's the creator. He created the seven, and this is the first. So usually it says in the Quran, he created the seven heavens and the earth. This is the one place in the Quran where it says 7 heavens and the earth, their likes. It's kind of hinting towards 7 earths. But we don't know any more details. The Mufassirin have mentioned many, many different opinions. Okay, but we don't know 100%. Allah and the Prophet ﷺ have left it ambiguous to us that there are so many other creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we should also leave it because we don't have any more. The scholars have given their opinions, but we don't dwell into that because there's nothing we know like solid, and it's not concrete. I'll read the little note here I have on that. The note here is, this is the literal translation of the verse, which apparently indicates that there are 7 earths like the 7 skies. However, the Holy Quran has not given their location nor any information as to whether they are one over the other or they are located at different places. Okay, so that's a nice little note here that the Shaykh has written. But if you look in the Tafseer book, there's all kinds of opinions. There's actually even a hadith, there's different hints. And what does it mean, 7 earths? But again, it's not, some of the opinions are actually hard for us to even understand. So something that Allah and Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam have left it ambiguous, we're not going to be asked on the Yawm al-Qiyamah, we leave it the way it is. Okay. Also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being the creator, his attribute is Khaliq. Another attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Badir and Fatir. Okay, Khaliq means the one who creates with a sample, and Badir and Fatir is the one who creates without a sample. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can create with something or without something. Allah can just originate something, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can create something out of something. So either way. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all these things. Allah is Khaliq too, he's also Al-Fatir as well, and he's Al-Badir as well. Then the next verse, the next part of the verse, يَتَنَزَّلُ الْأَمْرُ بَيْنَهُنَّ. The commands descends amongst them. That Allah has created these heavens and the earth, the commands descends amongst them. Everything that's happening is by the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All these angels are in work, right? They're writing the good deeds, they're making all the things, the clouds, the rain, everything is happening. Everything is by the command of Allah. Nothing is outside of the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Gravity, all science, everything that we know. يَتَنَزَّلُ الْأَمْرُ. His command descends between them, between the heavens and the earth. All right. لِتَعْلَمُوا. So that you may know that Allah is the. So all this is happening. Why? This is the end conclusion of the verse. All this is happening so that you come to know that Allah is all able. That Allah is all able over everything. So that's another attribute of His, which is Qadir. وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ أَحَاطَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عِلْمًا. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has encompassed everything in knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has encompassed everything in knowledge. That's the other attribute, Alim. Like Allah says elsewhere in the Quran, أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ. Doesn't He know who He created? It means that look, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is this powerful creator, all knowledgeable, right? All knowledgeable, all hearing, all seeing. Does it tire Him to control this universe, by the way?
No.
No, absolutely not. And that He okay. And He says, أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ. Doesn't He know who He created? I mean that He knows His creation in and out. So who knows that He being the best? That's why whose law will be the best? Man-made law or Allah's law? Allah. So we have to submit to it. We have to surrender to it. Never ever think for a second that let's put aside Allah's law and we're going to now take man's law over Allah's law. That's very sinful. Okay, Allah's law is superior. We may not understand it. That's our own lack of experience, a lack of staying away from the revelation. That's our own fault. That's not the fault. So Allah is all able, and He's all. Another question arises here: when Allah is all encompassing of knowledge. So does that mean that Allah? By the way, we believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He's encompassing us with His knowledge, and He's also here as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us. How? We don't know how. Yes, His knowledge encompasses everything, and He's also so close to us. We leave it at that. But this verse, sometimes some people took the wrong meaning from this verse, but it says Allah encompasses with knowledge, so then they go, oh, He's not with us, but His knowledge is with us. That would be the wrong meaning. This verse is not denying that He's not with us. Because there's other verses that say He's also with us. This verse is saying that his knowledge encompasses us. So you have to take both into consideration. Obviously, if he's with us, then his knowledge is also, yes, he's with us and his knowledge is also encompassing us. And he's also with us. He's closer to us than our jugular veins. So may Allah subhanahu give us tawfiq to amal. May Allah subhanahu give us tawfiq to follow on these ahkamat. Allah subhanahu give us tawfiq to turn to him, to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi subhanallah nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta